question that actually engages a number of issues regarding activism in the academy, homophobia within Afro-North American communities, and I'll say just briefly, this is a period that hopefully will produce intense activism at the university level. The overarching budget crisis that you're all familiar with has led to a crisis of public universities in the U.S. As a matter of fact, it costs as much to attend a public university today as it does to attend many private universities. And last March, students and faculty and community people, workers all over the country participated in an action that was called March 4th in defense of public universities. Now, it happened on March 4th. I don't know if you get the pun. It was March 4th on March 4th to defend public universities. One of the results of this budget crisis, of this economic crisis, is that larger numbers of students of color, Black students, Latino students, Native American students have been shut out of the academy. And so that campaign also contests structural racism in the university. Race matters, we always say, when it is a question of who gets to go to the university and who gets to go to prison. There is a very tiny percentage of Black people and people of color in the university, but they constitute the majority of the 2.3 million people behind bars. So the most radical elements of this activism attempts to make the connection between the crisis of the university and the relegation of more and more resources to an ever-expanding prison system that produces ever more profit for ever larger numbers of corporations. So, did you get that connection? Mm-hmm. Now, the other question on the other side of the page has to do with homophobia in Afro-North American communities. And I suppose my response would be that the challenge of organizing explicitly against homophobia is vast. I'm hesitating because recently, as a result of the passage of a law in California, or initiative in California, at the same time that Obama was elected, that was opposed to gay marriage, has created the impression that black people are more homophobic than white people. And first of all, black people constitute a small percentage of the population in California. So even though there is a lot of homophobia, black people were certainly not responsible for the passage of this law against gay marriage. But increasingly people recognize the importance of challenging the church, because it has been primarily the Christian church that is responsible for consolidating homophobic ideologies in black communities. And I want to give you an example of a very successful organizing effort in an out-of-the-way place. How many of you have heard of Louisville, Kentucky? Okay, Louisville, Kentucky, 1, 2, 3. How many of you have heard of the Kentucky Derby? Okay, Louisville is where the Kentucky Derby happens every year. But in Louisville, over the last decade, there's been amazing organizing that has brought black community activists together with gay community activists. And a campaign that is called Fairness Campaign, focused on economic fairness for black communities and economic fairness for LGBT communities. And it is probably the only place in the country where ministers in black churches on Sundays speak out against homophobia. So it's an example of what is possible if grassroots organizers do the work they are supposed to do. And I will say that none of us are immune from ideological influences, because black people have a long tradition of struggle for freedom. Does not necessarily mean that every black person will support every cause, every progressive cause from here to eternity. The work has to be done to allow people to recognize the extent to which they are enacting the projects of the state when they assent to homophobic ideas. This is grassroots work. And this is the work I think that we're all talking about here. This is the only way change has ever happened. And this is one of the major challenges of the beginning of the 21st century, it seems to me.